Hello, and welcome to the ECR Retail Loss, Sell More and Lose Less podcast series. My name is Colin Peacock. I've worked in the retail and FMCG business for more than 40 years, working on the dark side of retail, on retail loss at every point in the supply chain. Professor Emmeline Taylor has published a report with us last year. I think it's been very well received. We're looking to do and hear from her some updates in the world of managing staff dishonesty, a road less travelled for many loss prevention experts. It's something that's difficult, sensitive, awkward. At the same time, you're trying to build trust, and coming out of the peak season, perhaps there is actually a little peak in January. There's not many staff dishonesty cases in the peak period, which is interesting in itself. Anyway, what should retailers be looking out for in terms of initiatives or new research or new thinking, new strategies, and other references? So, yeah, looking forward to hearing. Glad we're in the same office again, by the looks of it. The scene's not too choppy. That's for those of you listening on Spotify or other podcast broadcast areas. Right, over to you.
It's almost as if we're in the same room, isn't it?
Yes.
The wonders of modern technology. So that report was published a few months ago now, and within it, the methodology suggested that 98% of individuals that are engaging in some level of employee theft, staff dishonesty, call it what you will, are going under the radar. And the volume is simply so high that no business could realistically investigate every single incident. So we began to shift the dial towards cultural change. How do we deter this in the outset rather than try and catch somebody after the event? And we had some really exciting student projects that looked at different poster campaigns, marketing campaigns that could begin to communicate with some of those employees that might be considering dabbling with dishonesty and then steering them away onto an honest path. Now, what's been really exciting in recent months is we've had one major retailer has trialed a series of posters internally to begin to pick up some of the themes from that report, and hopefully we'll hear the outcomes of that in a future session. But also what I'm seeing is this real focus around culture, and that is so exciting for some quick wins. Now, we recently had a ECR retail loss session, which focused on staff dishonesty and really began to explore the role of exception-based reporting within that. So EBR technology, looking for those anomalies at the point of sale, self-service checkouts, any other data sources that could be looked at that might signal that a business has a problem and be able to identify who the individual might be. So it was a really brilliant session. Just in the run up to that, you ran a survey of interested people that would know, the level of EBR use within the business. And the top finding from that, 83% of businesses from across 19 different countries are actually using EBR for some form of data analysis to begin to explore employee theft. It was a really interesting set of findings.
Seems like it's chapter 1 now of loss prevention around staff dishonesty. Chapter 1, get EBR. Either build it yourself or go to one of the providers. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and so the four main areas or data points that were being seen as being very significant to signal if there is an internal problem. Number one, perhaps no surprise, it was looking at voided items. We then had refunds to the same card, manual discounts, and then fourth, looking at staff loyalty cards and how they are potentially being misused. What was really interesting about that fourth one, though, is a large proportion of the respondents said they didn't even have access to that data point, yet it was seen as so significant by other businesses. So there's some really quick sort of insights and learnings about how we can maybe improve the data analysis to really drive those anomalies and understand where there might be a cultural problem within a business.
Yeah, and I think there's another point as well that was later on about the video integration, which is a productivity piece, right? It's sort of like, not having to go and find the video associated with, so the integration seemed to be, but not everyone had the integration, which was I thought there'd be more of that.
It was actually more no's than yeses, wasn't it, in
Yeah.
terms of video integration? Now, is that something to do with the jurisdictional legal landscape? You know, we had 19 countries being represented. We know some locations, particularly across Europe, are very video averse. So it could be that, or I would suggest, you know, they're missing a trick if it's not a legal concern.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think that I mean, look, some people, I guess this is the old piece about deterrence and detection and the 98%. How do you deter those? Yeah, how did you see BR in the context of sort of deterring, if you like? Because you know, it strikes me that it could be seen as more of a detection tool. You know, go and catch people doing voids. You know, secret squirrel back in the head office. But how can it be used to get to that deterrence, which is the 98%?
Yeah, so we had a fantastic input from one retailer who firmly located EBR as one tool in a more holistic LP strategy. And I think that's really important. We can't just rely solely on that data. We need to see it in a bigger context and a broader strategy towards employee theft. Now, that retailer talked strongly about the importance of transparency and communicating what this technology can do, and that there will be a follow-up if it does identify anomalies, and there'll be consequences. Now, the retailer then spoke about how that drives deterrence, because individuals know they just simply can't get away with trying to hide their activities. You know, the key things, voiding items late at night when they're on a loan shift, you know, it just picks up all of these discrepancies that are known red flags. So you then drive the deterrence rather than the detection. And I think some of the figures were incredible in terms of the value of individual cases had gone from 4 figures down to 2. So really brilliant ROI.
Yes, no, they did talk about that. I loved it. That it was one of those. They were obviously keen that all the, if you like, they sort of like delegated, you know, the looking at it to the store managers, and there was a tremendous interchange between two retailers. One retailer said, "Well, we can't expect our store managers to look at, you know, these exceptions, these anomalies. You know, someone, as you say, transferring, you know, £200 to a card at 3 o'clock in the morning." And so, but the pushback was fantastic because also this particular retailer done a survey, I think, of all the amount of time that a store manager is talking to members of staff, and it came out like 4-5 hours out of an 8-hour shift. And the pushback from the person in charge of leading this program was, surely you can spend 3 minutes just talking about the coaching opportunity around asking the employee to explain why they did put on £200 to a card at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
The other piece I really liked as well was, if they noticed that some stores weren't taking any actions, it's not obvious that they were using the tool, that they would throw in a sort of crazy one, a crazy, you know, incident to see whether they've actually noticed. And then sort of like, oh, it's a mistake, you know. But had they noticed, you know, had you noticed that we just put in a, you know, a £10,000 void discrepancy?
Yeah, and you see similar techniques used. You know, it makes me think of the airport scanners who are having to check, you know, is there anything dodgy in your luggage? You know, you get system sort of, you know, you can get sort of zoned out from the system. So every now and again they put a fake gun in there and just see, are you actually awake and monitoring this? So it's another way of just checking, isn't it?
I didn't know they did that
across your systems. Well, there you go.
Didn't know they did that.
Now, what I thought was really interesting as well, there was a bit of a diversion of views, and this came out in the survey, the EBR survey. So do you have this only as a centralized tools, which means it's purely data led, because the people looking at that have no understanding of who that staff member is, how that store operates. But there was another perspective of, let's empower the stores because they know their staff. There might be other you know, there might be other issues that staff member is presenting, always turning up late, not really engaged, disgruntled, and that could signal that they are engaging in some forms of employee theft. So let them have the tools to be able to match up that experience with staff members with what the data is telling them as well. So I think that is important to have that store ownership alongside the central overview that can look at the stores, across the entire landscape.
Yeah, and as I say, try to position it as 3 minutes in 4 hours of discussions. You surely can mention it once. I think also it was really important that, and we've seen this before as well, is that you almost create a marketing campaign around what you're doing, giving it a name. Sainsbury's famously had Eagle Eye. I think this particular retailer called it "Is it worth it?"
Yeah.
And sort of give it a brand name, give it a badge, give it something that where people sort of start noticing and start referencing it. And this is your "Is it worth it?" coaching moment.
Yeah,
So I think that was
definitely.
really powerful. You've
And
often said that, God, you've
I
often
was just going
said,
to say, we also had the quote of the week, didn't we, in that particular presentation? So
oh yes,
the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept. And this really taps into some established criminological theories. I think most people will be familiar with the broken windows theory, with the idea you don't just turn your eye, turn a blind eye to things if you see them as too trivial, minor infractions of store policy. You have to crack down on every single incident, whether it's $1 or $500, because we know if there's one thing we do know about employee theft is that it escalates because the staff member becomes emboldened. They encourage colleagues to participate in the same types of things. So that $1 infraction is just as important, because otherwise, further down the line, you might find that you do have, those $500 issues and a cultural problem on your hands.
yes, and I think again the emphasis was, if you find a Red Bull that's been half opened or half drunk or fully drunk in the back, and there's no evidence that it's been paid for, you take that to the next staff meeting and say, I don't really expect anyone to own up to this, but this is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the really practical way of bringing that lost culture to life. So yeah, really, really good. Now, I suppose one of the things that did come up about EBR, and you've mentioned this so many times, is that I guess when everything was manned assistant, and everything went through one form of checkout, so everything that left the store had to be paid for, in theory. Obviously, some of it isn't paid for, which is why we're busy doing work. But it used to all go through the front end. But now there seems to be so many different ways in which, if you wanted to collude or just wanted to help your friend or whatever, there could be some sort of areas of staff dishonesty. What did you pick up about that? What are you picking up about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, as the fulfillment methods have become so diversified, these opportunities for things like sweethearting have of course been amplified. One of the things that came out in the survey is that EBR technology, just using that as as an example, is overwhelmingly only used on bricks and mortar cashiers. And so order pickers, delivery drivers, third-party fulfillment companies are not being subjected to this type of analysis. Now, I think that is probably where this needs to move towards, because we know that vulnerabilities, you lock down one and it just simply appears elsewhere. So maybe thinking of how this can be implemented across the supply chain and looking to where the next vulnerable points might suddenly emerge.
Well, yes, I mean that was interesting. That taps into another conversation we were having around supply chain losses, around drivers, stopping somewhere and skimming, if you like, some of the products, on the particular lorry. So again, it's taking that broader approach.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a big problem.
yeah. So what do you think is the year ahead? Have you got some thoughts in terms of what we need to be looking at in terms of staff dishonesty? Where we should be focused? I mean, we probably need to follow up on that staff dishonesty campaign, see whether people have got some results from that. Any other thoughts in terms of where we should be looking at, or where
Yeah,
retailers should be looking?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from more retailers that have gone down that sort of marketing, campaigns, communications strategy, and just seeing whether that is converting into a shift in levels of loss within store or within the distribution centres, and any other types of activity that are being used. We know that EBR seems to have, some really great ROIs. So again, I think putting the data points to that to be able to understand, exactly how, when, and with what employees it should be used. So I think there's still a lot of movement within this that we need to sort of try and encourage over the next year. But I think what is most heartening to me is that there is so much more willingness to discuss internal theft now compared to a few years ago, where it was just seen as so taboo. You would not dare consider that, your employees are defrauding you. But I think that's changed as the employment landscape has changed. Retail's got one of the highest turnovers of any industry. It confidently sits above 50% all of the time and peaks at certain points. We've then got the seasonality, the transitory nature of employees. So that's always going to raise issues.
We're going to be busy.
Always. That's how I
always.
Like it.
Well, thank you again, Emmeline, for your time and thoughts, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to all the ECR Retail Loss community for the sharing of their knowledge, their research and latest learnings that ensure that we become truly a global platform for learning. My name is Colin Peacock. This is the Sell More and Lose Less podcast, and if you liked it, please subscribe so you automatically get all future episodes. And also, if you think your colleagues and friends might also like it, please ask them to follow ECR Retail Loss on LinkedIn and tune in to our next podcasts. If you didn't like it, then let us know and we'll try and fix it. Either way, see you next time. Thank you again.